Let's go back to the coaching move with Ilaisa Tuiaki for a moment. Defensive coordinator announced on Sunday via social media that he was going to step down and leave the program, won't coach in the bowl game. Gives him plenty of time to find a new job and BYU time to find his replacement. And I was on Sports Nation yesterday and we were talking about it. And there's when a coach is dismissed or decides to leave or whatever, everything focuses in the negative of, we couldn't stop Arkansas. We couldn't blah, 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 blah. And this is why this is a good move. But then if you're going to do that, as I mentioned yesterday, you've also got to bring in the fact that BYU was 28-9 over the last 3 seasons. Ilaisa Tuiaki was 28-9.
Right.
Jaron Hall was 6-1 against the Pac-12. Tuiaki was 6-1 against the Pac-12. You got to throw those numbers in too.
He was 11-1, or was it 11-1 2 years ago? They were 10-3 last year, or were they 12-1 2?
11-1 in the COVID year,
right? And then
10-3
last year. Yeah,
and
he was the defensive coordinator those 2 years.
And so
they were ranked for 17 straight weeks, and he was the D coordinator.
Yeah, I don't like when we just pile on a guy and dismiss him. And it's like, well, now wait a second. He was in on everything that was good. He was in on,
and people felt like, well, they slide the last end of last season. Well, guess what? They lost 5 of their top 6 linebackers last year, half their secondary, and then this year they've lost 4 of their top 6 linebackers again.
Oh, and by the way, they also played Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Stanford, 5 P5s at Boise State.
Right.
And Utah State was the league champion last year. We didn't know they were going to crumble.
Boise State's as good as more than they'd be in the top third of P5 programs in the country this year.
Yeah. And you know what's strange, too?
And Liberty was on a roll when they played them, and East Carolina was on the roll when they played them. This is the toughest schedule. I think this schedule shaped up to be the toughest one BYU's played.
And let's say this. This is funny how the game goes. And I'm all for change, and I think this is a good change.
Yeah.
But if Jaron Hall doesn't get his shoulder injured at the end of the Utah State game, they don't go 0 for 4 in October, and we're not even having this conversation.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with whatever the defense did. It has everything to do with something that an offensive guy did on the field when the defense was on the sideline.
Right.
And that's
short fields and all that. And but they're gonna make some changes as they go into the Big 12, and I just caution people to be a little bit careful, because I read, like, every once in a while somebody will show me a tweet or something about somebody that just really almost angry. Oh, great, it's about to, and I'm going, have you been in the meetings over there?
No.
Do you know what, like, and people act so opinionated and so negative about it. As you mentioned, he had a phenomenal run here, and you know, maybe we'll love the style that they go with now, because I do believe, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, that it's going to be Kalani run for a while. But this is the same tone, and I remember, I'm going way back, and you remember it too, Dave. Norm Chow is awful.
Right.
He needs to be out of here.
He's the worst person.
The game's passed him by. I mean, I was listening to people, and I kept telling people, you need to stop saying that, because first of all, it's blatantly false. Why all of a sudden is everybody on Norm Chow? Well, we had a little bit of a talent issue for a couple of years, and so what does Norm do? He's like, okay, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this fan base just telling me how crappy I am. I'm out. I'll just go to USC and win 2 national championships and coach a bunch of Heisman Trophy winners, and then I'll go be the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. And when I'm done, I'm going to be recognized as one of the greatest minds, offensive minds, in the history of college football. And BYU fans basically ran him out on a rail.
Yeah.
I remember it. I remember it well. You remember those days.
He called most of the plays in Lavelle's glory years.
Yeah.
Most of them. And in years when he had a really good quarterback, he won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah. And
in years where he had a quarterback that wasn't great, all right, we were 8-4.
Yeah, people were freaking out.
You know?
And guess what? And at those USC, like, a couple of those USC teams, you can make an argument are the best teams in the history of college football, and he was running that offense, right? So it's like you just got to be careful.
And you can have opinions. That's okay, and all that stuff.
You got to be careful with how angry and how negative you are about people. And I think it's like he's moving on, and we may love the direction they take, and that'll be great. What I'm saying is when somebody's put in all those years and the hours, because these guys go in at 6:30 in the morning and get home at 10 o'clock at night, all football season long. Then they go on the road and recruit in the hall in the offseason. I think it's time to say, hey, hey, thanks for the amazing job that you did and all of the time you committed to this program and to these kids and the effect that you've had on kids, and say good luck to you. Because I got news for you. He's got some really, really good friends in the business, and Ilaisa Tuiaki is going to go off and maybe be a D-line coach at a P5 school, and probably be really, really good and come back to haunt us and coach against us at some point. So I think you always wish people well.
And if the $5 booster is the one making all the noise, the $5 booster.
Right.
The multi-million-dollar booster, they're not on Twitter going, this guy's an idiot. We should fire him. I can't. They don't do that. They may make a phone call and have some visits and
say,
hey,
what's going
how
on?
can we
Fill
do
me
this?
in,
How
right.
can I? But it's the $5 booster that's like, gnashing of teeth and all that. That's so stupid.
Well, remember Kyle Whittingham? Like, I don't know, it's every fan base. So
yeah,
they were ready to run Kyle out on a rail a few years ago, and Utah's the best. Like, hey, I hate to even say these words, but Utah's by far the best program in the Pac-12 in the last decade, by far. They've been in 4 of the last 5 Pac-12 championship games,
and he's a good coach. He's a great coach.
But people over time, when they've had a little bit of a down year, act like he's never going to stand up to Urban. Like, he's been better than Urban Meyer at Utah. Now, Urban's been great in other places, but he seems to go build a team, win a national championship, and then leave them in shambles.
I was interviewing Kyle one time for a Father's Day piece on KSL TV, and we finished up. And we were walking around. And he was showing around the offices, and it was great. It was a fun visit, and our dads knew each other when at BYU back in the day, and both had passed, so we had a lot in common. And I just looked at him. I said, "You know what we are, Kyle? We're just 2 BYU guys who happen to have jobs in Salt Lake City."
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think he thought that was as funny as I did.
I love it. So, but and it seems like it's always that way, that when your team has a little bit of a downturn, we're not patient and we start calling for people's heads, but when something changes like this, I think what we all need to do is take the high road and go, hey, Ilaisa's stepped down. He's moving on.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being all of the because amazing contributions, and your phenomenal record while you were here of 28-9 and that great run. We're grateful to you for every minute that you put in. Now we wish you well.
Yeah.
And I see some tweets out there, not a lot. I realize I'm talking to the minority here because most people are exactly what we're talking about. But there's some people out there that are just like, oh, good, now I'm gonna grind him into the ground, tell him how much he stunk while he was here.
Seriously.
That stuff is lost on